Hey, welcome everybody to day 9 of the Metabolism Engineering Internship. Today you will be completing your proposal and submitting it. Are we there already? Have we really done that much work? Yes, you have. And you've been doing it bit by bit along the way. So hopefully it seems like, oh wow, this big, huge proposal thingy that was looming over us, we've actually done most of it already. Good for you. Good for you. That's got to be a good feeling. So, as always, though, when we start off with our lessons, make sure you connect to the Future Workspace. Make sure you check your daily message from Amina and make any notes that you might need to pay close attention to the things that she's asking you to do. Once you do that, go ahead and come on back to me. All right, we are going to start with the introduction today. This is one of the last pieces that we actually need to complete for our proposal. So in the introduction, you'll explain the project so that even a reader who doesn't know about your work can understand it. So we need to explain the project. Now, we did something similar to this when we did our project summary, and we're going to come back to that in just a moment. But I want you to think, like, if we're telling somebody about this project, why we're doing what we're doing, what information might be important to include in the introduction. Something about your target population, something about the whole purpose of what you're doing, why you're making these health bars in the first place, what kinds of criteria maybe you're trying to address. Let's take a look at the rubric. Remember, we have this was attached to a previous lesson. I'll go ahead and attach it to this lesson as well, just so you have it on hand. But let's go ahead and zoom in on the introduction section of this rubric. And, let's go all the way to the Excels category, because that's that column. That's really where we want to be, right? Thoroughly summarizes the design request and describes all criteria. All right, where would we find that? Where could we find the design request? The dossier. If we go back to the dossier, we can find that. Describes the proposed design by listing the variables or details and the final results. So you're kind of giving a summary. Hey, here's what I did, and here's what happened. Now, to complete the proposal introduction, you'll need to tell the audience the details of the design you're proposing. This is where you'll make your claim that you made the best bar, that you really did it. And then the rest of the proposal, all the details that we've already done, is just going to support that claim that, hey, this is the best bar. This is the one that you should buy, okay? So let's go ahead and move to the next slide and check it out. It is a sample design claim. Hey, Mr. Wigand, this looks really good. Could I just use this when I write my claim? Hey, I don't see why not, because you're right, it is pretty good. It's a pretty easy, straightforward, basic way to write out your claim and why you think your claim is, your bar is the best. Is this your whole introduction? No, this is just your claim, okay? But Mr. Wiggin, if I wanted to, could I just kind of copy and paste this and use it as an outline for my claim? I'm okay with that. But you definitely need more in your introduction, okay? Oh yeah, check it out. The project summary from day 4. We were supposed to write a whole project summary of about what we were doing. You can use this. This is great information to include in your introduction, because again, if we go back, we want to summarize what we were doing. What was the whole point of this? You've already done that. You've already answered a lot of those questions. So again, could I copy and paste some of that into my introduction? Yeah, you're probably going to need to tweak it a little bit and make it flow better, but you can use that as a good example. So again, like we've done before with some of these sections, you can go ahead and pin your project summary, and then if you want, you can copy and paste some things into your final proposal. But again, like I said, you're going to have to tweak it a little bit, make sure it's fine-tuned, make sure it flows well. And revise it, okay? And make sure you add that claim as well. And you can use that outline that we looked at earlier. So go ahead, work on that, go find that, and then come back to me. We'll talk about the conclusion. It's conclusion time. So it's nice how they have all these little sections for you to just write. Okay, now I'm going to write this part in this little box. Now I'm going to write this part in this little box. And it takes some maybe daunting feeling essay and really chunks it out and breaks it up into just all these little parts. Someone like me, I like that. I like that a lot. It really makes it feel a lot more manageable. In the conclusion, you'll wrap up the entire proposal by demonstrating that you understand trade-offs between the criteria. Oh yeah, trade-offs. Hey, didn't we write something about trade-offs? Yes, we did. And you are going to revisit that in your conclusion. Let's take a look at this rubric again, and let's make sure we understand how to write or what to include in a solid conclusion. Here we go, over here in the Excel's column. Description of design priorities is clear. What were your priorities? That's what it wants. Summary of trade-offs. And the optimal design is detailed and thorough. Yeah, that description of trade-offs. What did you sacrifice in order to meet your goals and to focus on your priorities? It includes a strong closing statement. What should my closing statement say? Well, it should summarize the whole thing and say why you're the best human being in the world, or why your bar is the one that they should go with. Okay. So what might make the summary of trade-offs clear and detailed? This is a good question that we can talk about in class. But remember, we already wrote about this, didn't we? And we answered some specific questions about this. And of course, what I'm going to want you to do is go back to the trade-offs reflection, and consider these questions right here on the screen. Is it clear which criterion was chosen as a priority? Because obviously we prioritized some things over others. We couldn't get everything perfect. So which things did we want to really stand out? Is the summary of trade-offs detailed and thorough? How much did you have to sacrifice? What goal were you trying to attain? How much did you have to add of something else? More questions to consider, but these are still similar. Ooh, I like this one. Did different designs have similar trade-offs? Because you obviously made lots of different designs. Were you always trading off the same thing, different things? And of course, this one too, how did your choice of what to prioritize affect the trade-offs you made? We've talked about that already. So for a convincing conclusion, all right, so what do I really need for a convincing conclusion? We already looked at the rubric, right? But you need to summarize why the project director should choose your design. Remember, like a strong closing statement. Describe your priorities. What did you focus on? The trade-offs you considered, design strategies that you used, pros and cons of certain ingredients, and then your closing statement about why this design is optimal, even though there were trade-offs. Because you know that your bar is not perfect. You know that it doesn't do everything. Maybe it's a little expensive, but you're going to sell your bar, right? You're going to say, hey, even though the cost is a little bit more than maybe some of these other bars, here's why it's the best, and here's why it's worth that cost. Even though my bar doesn't taste as good as some of the other bars, that's your trade-off. Let me tell you why you still need to go with my bar, because no other bar is going to meet the metabolic needs of the target population like my bar. Wow. I'll take 10,000. Thank you. Hey, you can do the same thing that we did previously with your trade-offs reflection and pin it and use it kind of as a guide for your conclusion, because there's a lot of good information that you're going to want to include in there. You could just transfer it, but don't just leave it as is. If you do, copy and paste your responses from the trade-offs reflection. Make sure you go back and fine tune it. Make sure you follow all those steps of what makes a good, solid conclusion. Don't just turn it in, copied and pasted. Make sure it flows. Make sure it reads like an actual conclusion. Imagine, hey, this is the final thing you're saying. to the Shark Tank, before you let them decide, are they going to buy your product or not? Okay. And then finalizing the proposal, one last go through of your entire proposal, review, make any final revisions, and just make sure it reads like a proposal. If you're trying to sell this bar to somebody and this is what they had, would they be convinced? Would they say, wow, I really want to, put my money into this company. This company looks like they know what they're doing. Or is it weak and unconvincing and spelling mistakes and improper grammar? Make sure you spell check this. But yeah. Give it one final go through and make sure it's polished, make sure it looks good, and then you can hit the submit button and send it off. And we'll see what International Disaster Aid thinks of your Futura bar. After hours work, of course, go through, see if there's anything else that you need to do that Amina wants you to do, any other deliverables, unfinished tasks. And after that, look at that. Oh, we're done. Good job, people. You just submitted your proposal. I hope you feel good about that.